Welcome to Pop Culture Roulette for all your pop culture needs. We're America's spookiest podcast.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right, welcome everybody. This is week 2 of our themed episodes. This week we will be, as you heard at the end of the last episode, we will be tackling cults. It's going to be a weird episode, not going to lie. So, of course, I'm joined by future cult leader Jeremy
Congratulations.
and
be so
future
bad.
cult victim Justin.
I got your back, buddy.
I got plenty of Nikes.
Oh, me too.
Well, we will get to them. Don't worry. All right. So one of the worst possible ways you can start a speech when you're doing a public speaking thing is to say, Webster's Dictionary defines. That's just a horrible way to start a speech. It really is. So
That being said,
cults. In modern English, a cult is defined as a social group defined by its unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical beliefs and rituals, or in its common interest of a particular personality, object, or goal. The definition for cult is quite broad. We have a cult of personality. It could be quite honestly, those of us that are giant Kevin Smith fans could be considered a cult. I don't think we quite fall into that category because we're not really organized. Unless he does a movie, we're like, and then the rest of the time we're just kind of hanging out.
yeah, the rest of the time we're just kind of like, yeah.
So I mean, you have cult movies, cult, bands have cult followings. But when you get into the more dangerous side of things, where we're gonna try to stick with because we want to stay on the creepy side of cults, So what are the characteristics of a cult? You have to have a charismatic leader. So you got to have somebody like a Charles Manson or a Jim Jones or you name it, Major Applewhite. There's a number of them, and we'll get down to it. Inside the cult, there's an ideological purity, so it's strongly discouraged from questioning the doctrine, and doubts are met with punishment. So this is where I think you can separate religion from cult, where you can go to a church and it's not part of a cult because questioning is not discouraged. Where in a cult, if you question, you get beatings.
Yeah.
Or, and we'll get further into not just beatings. There's a conformity of control. So within the cult, you have uniforms, diets, schedules, a high degree over control over the individual's life. So that's where the Nike comes in. They had uniforms. They had to wear a certain type of shirt, a certain type of pant, a certain type of Nike. They were only allowed to eat a certain type of food. You had to, there's a big sleep deprivation thing. Your life becomes highly regimented. It kind of
I could.
Yeah, sounds like working at big box retail.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, there are definite, parallels. But there's also mind-altering practices that goes into that sleep deprivation that I was talking about. Drugs, meditation, not just regular meditating, kind of sitting back and thinking about your thoughts for a few minutes, just kind of the daily thing that you can just center yourself. The highly destructive level of meditation. And I'm not talking about the drugs that are fun. I'm talking about heavy psychotropics and the kinds of things drugs that get you hooked to a level of you will do what the cult leader tells you to
Mhm.
continue to get your fix.
Mm.
You know, so not just, not well, I guess you could say alcohol, but that's a really extreme level. And I don't, I through what little, well, I'm not going to say what little research, what medium level of research I did, I didn't find a cult around alcohol. Mainly because I think there'd just be too many fights.
Yeah, I think the whole state of Wisconsin is a cult of
Well,
alcoholics.
no, that's all right. Well, that gets into your very broad definition of cult that we talked about earlier.
And we all dislike Illinois. That's our common goal.
Yeah,
And
There you
thread.
go.
and we're very organized because there's a lot of small town bars everywhere to meet, and VFW halls.
Right. That is also within the cult society, isolation/love bomb. It's oddly similar, even though like conceptually it sounds very differently. So you're cut off. The cult goes out of your way to cut you off from your family and friends. Whatever support system you did have, it wants to separate you from that, so that you're more dependent on the cult and the leader than having anybody to fall back on. Also, like the new member, like, so if you're a new member, like you're like you just showed up and there's like, the older members will just be like, oh, just love bomb you, so that you're like, oh, I don't, and like they're not only while they're pulling you away from your family, like your family doesn't love you the way we do. Oh, look, love, and just really give. And a lot of people who fall victim to cults don't have the best family life to begin with. That's not, I mean, that's an overgeneralization, because there are a lot of people who become victims of cults for various different reasons, but there are reasons that sometimes cliches exist. Also, in there, you have us versus them mentality. So Wisconsin is better than Illinois.
Facts.
But but once you're in the cult, like, oh, the rest, the government's out to get us, or they're out, that group is out to get us, or, really kind of either further insulating you within the group, because like those guys are out to get me. I have to stay within this group to stay protected. And then where the cults really get deadly is when they develop the apocalyptic thinking. When the comet that's going, when the Hale-Bopp comet's about to come by, it's either the end of the world or the way to get to the next level of, whatever.
Yeah, there's a spaceship behind it taking you to the next plane of existence.
Right. Because that makes any sense. So now there are a bunch of different types of cults. They're broken down in various different categories, but as we'll come to discover, I don't think any one cult really falls into one category by itself. I think much like, every movie isn't just comedy. It's romantic comedy or horror comedy or sci-fi there's always a second,
Right.
there's always a second,
thing.
a subcategory. So you have religious cults, Scientology, the Jonestown.
Oh, you're gonna go out on a limb and call Scientology a cult?
I'm not going out on a limb. I mean, it is well defined as a cult. Like it.
Well, I don't want to get attacked by any high profile celebrities. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I know pretty famous people probably listen to Pop Culture Roulette to get their entertainment news.
We just ended our Tom Cruise sponsorship, but
we'll give him a bracket later on and it'll be fine.
Okay, all right.
And
but by the very definition of cult and the way that the practice is, I mean, it's not. I'm going based off of multiple places. Not, I mean, I think even the U.S. government considers Scientology to be a cult.
Okay.
So it's because of following with what they do with the conformity of control, the ideological purity, the isolation, the us versus them, like that. It is very, once you're in, you're in. And then if you want me to take it one step further, Mormonism.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
I mean, and that's a whole nother conversation. But by the very definition of what we were talking about, Mormonism is a cult.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are some examples of religious cults there. Then you have the destructive cults.
Hmm.
You have once again Jonestown.
Hmm.
You've got the Manson family,
Yeah.
which is one of the stranger cults because like their entire goal was basically just pure chaos, and we'll get into him a little bit more. And then Heaven's Gate,
Hmm.
who they're the ones we were talking about with the Hale Bob comet and the same uniforms. You've got doomsday cults, cults that are built around the idea that the end times are coming. The Branch Davidians, so the guys down in Waco, Texas.
Hmm.
Uh, this one's a little bit hard to pronounce, but I know they're kind of bigger, more in Japan. But our Oyum Shinrikyo.
Okay.
Um, I guess a couple of decades ago, there was a really big attack by this cult in the subway system that killed a minimum of 13 people. But there were thousands of active members there. And it was very much a doomsday cult kind of scenario. But I know I don't want to speak too much on them because I really don't understand a lot of what their concept was.
But they just attacked random civilians.
Um, I, I, it wasn't necessarily they released some sort of nerve agent, some sort of toxin gas in the Japanese subway system.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, surprisingly, it only killed 13 people. I
Yeah.
mean, 13 people is still a lot,
Yeah.
but considering what they were trying to do, they were only, they only killed 13. But I think they might have killed more because I don't think they popped back up on my list here. But
Hmm.
you know, oh, and then Heaven's Gate also falls into the Doomsday Cult. Uh, um, this one is a category that I'm going to stay away from outside of just the following statement, because this is not what this podcast is about. But there's political cults. So the extremist level of politics, QAnon, political groups that oppose any different belief system beyond their way of thinking, um, which is maybe a little bit too real of what's going on right now in politics. So
I've got a great segment we can play. I'll name a bunch of different political organizations, and you can tell me if you think they're cults or not. It
well,
won't get us in any hot water at all.
I mean, quite honestly, um, the way that they're portrayed, both parties are portrayed right now, they're both fucking cults.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
All right, and then we have the lesser. There's not a lot of examples of this level cult, but it is there. You have the polygamist cult. That one seemed to be on a much smaller level, like more of the, for lack of a better term, boutique cult,
Mm.
where you don't get into the hundreds or thousands in members. You only get into like maybe double digits. So it's like, Um, and then, I mean, the only example I have is the Mormonism, but they don't support polygamy anymore. Like that was something that they, they claim that they excised from
Really?
yeah, they don't.
I thought that
There
was the
are
whole reason to join.
there are sects within sex
Hmm.
SECTS
Hmm.
within Mormonism that still believe in polygamy, but as a whole, the group that's centered in Salt Lake City is no, we don't support it, we don't believe in it, it's not part of us anymore.
Hmm.
So it's just the only group that I could say is an example of what a polygamist cult would be.
Yeah.
And then we have the racist cults,
Hmm.
uh, KKK, a group that calls themselves the Nation of Islam. I just want to be very careful in saying that this is not Islam itself. It is a group that's called that Islam itself would not support, but they call themselves the Nation of Islam. Um, these are some very racist groups, very racist cults. Um, Also fairly similar to the destructive level of cults, you have terrorist cults.
Hmm.
So Al Qaeda, Shining Path down in Peru. But as you can see, like I said, a lot of cults move within, it maybe started as religious, but then moved into doomsday and then moved into destructive, or, started, one way, or, just like I said,
Yeah.
hold themselves multiple genres
Mhm.
far away. So, yeah, I mean, so cults are pretty scary things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should start one.
I
I like the idea of having a structured life and someone to tell me what to do.
And followers.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Well, and see, that's where they get a lot of people, is that like having the idea of having a support group or having, a regimented schedule. You're like, yeah, okay, I can be into this at first.
And everyone giving us their stuff. Their worldly
Well, all right.
possessions.
I mean, if we're going to stay on the leadership side of things, then yes.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
great.
we're not
Yeah.
just gonna, yeah. We're not just gonna join one, we're gonna start one.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
okay. All
So
right,
well, the
all
perks of being leaders.
Yeah. And aren't all cults just kind of like pyramid schemes?
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, if you get two friends and I get two friends.
I did put multi-level marketing as one of my runner-ups.
I was just thinking about that time at work when you used to work there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
that was a.
The
that
one
was a-
guy kept trying to get you to go to his pyramid scheme things.
Yeah.
Where were you meeting him? McDonald's, Burger
I
King?
met him at the McDonald's to give him a CD back, and then at first I met him at the Barnes and Noble, and he's like, "Oh, I got this business thing." It kept escalating.
Yeah.
That was a great series of episodes. I remember wanting you to keep going further with it, just to like, just to see how far you could take it before you had to.
Just for the material.
I actually have a more recent multi-level marketing story, but I don't know if I can talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, maybe
I'll
that's
just tell you guys off air.
Okay.
Off air.
All right. So I did list, so that I did have two separate categories here. I did list some of the more dangerous or famous cults. There was one called the Children of God. David Berg founded it. He twisted the message of love into sex into figuring out a way to basically have sex with kids. At one point, it had a membership of over 10,000 in the 70s.
Jeez.
Rose McGowan and the Phoenix Kids were raised within the cult. So River, Joaquin, the River obviously passed away from drug abuse, and Joaquin is super weird. And Rose McGowan has gone on record with talking about how destructive growing up in that world was at the beginning of her life.
Yeah.
Also super weird.
Yeah. Well, when you have a family system that basically says that, hey, you're 12, you're 13, you're 14, you're fair game, it's going to fuck your world up.
Yeah.
You've got Heaven's Gate, which is one of the largest mass suicides in U.S. history with 39. We've talked about them a few times already, but I mean, they've kind of become a punchline because of the whole cutting their balls off, wearing the uniforms, the Nikes.
Yeah.
And actually, to be fair, not all of the 39 people who died cut their balls off. That was only a couple people.
Interesting.
But they still did kill themselves. So
Right. And one guy stayed behind to have the website. He answers emails back at the website.
Still does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like one or two guys that left the cult before the mass suicide, but still believes in it. So he still answers and he still does the different news and stuff on it.
Which is weird.
Right.
Like, hey, buddy, here's the thing. The rest of us are going to go jump on the comet and head off to the other planet. But you got to stay behind. Am I recruiting people? Am I just starting back over when you guys come? No. Recruitment's done. We're not coming back around. You just have to stay behind.
Yeah.
Can you just run to the store and pick up something real quick? Okay, good. He's gone.
That guy was a real asshole.
Don't want him.
That guy to
Yeah.
We don't want that guy to come with us.
Extend to the next level of or plane of existence, whatever they thought it was.
We also have the Branch Davidians, where over 80 people died in that standoff between the FBI and the ATF and David Koresh. Most of these cults that we're talking about, if you want to get really in depth in, last podcast on the left has probably done a multi-part series on them, and they did a lot more research than I am at this point in our podcast history willing to do, especially for a single episode. So if you really want to know more about the ins and the outs of what they believed and how they went from just being like, hey guys, let's all hang out and be friends, to everybody dies. They're one of your easier resources because you don't have to read, you can just listen.
Right.
The Manson family, 10 deaths that we know of for certain. But we're pretty certain that they're up to 35 that this group killed. This is the problem with the 60s, the 70s, the 50s, basically any time before the internet in the late 90s up till now, is that it was really easy at some point in this country to just disappear. We didn't take missing people as seriously as we do now. And even now, we don't really take it as seriously as we should. But a lot of times when you'd have a high schooler or early college age kid go missing, the cops would just be like, oh, they run away. They don't, they're an adult now. Who cares? And so unless we found the body, they're just missing. And so it's really hard to say for certain exactly how many the Manson family actually killed. We know for a fact, because of the high level of what the Manson family became, we know for a fact that they killed 10 people. But there's a lot of missing people and a lot of people who, you don't know, because there were people who were in the cult who maybe at some point were like, I don't want to be here anymore. And they ran away from the cult. And now they're living their own life somewhere else where they don't even want to be bothered with people talking to them about, well, what was your life like in the cult? I just don't want to remember. I don't want to think about it. So it's hard to say for certain. They also, their big thing was Charles Manson wanted to start a race war.
Okay.
One of the things that doesn't get reported a lot about the deaths is that the murders that he was doing, not only was he doing writing Helter Skelter, or his people writing Helter Skelter on the wall, they were trying to make it look like the African American community was committing the crimes, because they were hoping that would turn the white people against the African American community and then start a race war. I don't ultimately remember what their goal was, why they were trying to do that, but that's what he was trying to do.
If I remember, they wanted, because it was the Black Panthers, I think at the time, they were trying to set them up to take the rap for the murders, and then him and his followers were gonna survive somewhere in California, like Death Valley or one of those areas, a canyon out there, until it was over. And they thought that the uprising, the African American community was gonna win. And then they were going to come back out and rule over the African Americans, because they would just bow down to them, and because they thought that they were a lesser race. So they would just do what they were told.
Okay. So in this crazy scenario, the African American community wins the race war. They've just now destroyed all of the white people. 20 white people come back out of the forest, and the African American community just won, and they just go, oh well, look, new white people, they're in charge now.
Right.
They don't just go, well, we just beat the last group, let's just go beat this group.
Yeah, basically. We just took out how many, but these last 15, I don't have it in me. Especially
since 14 to 15 of them are skinny, tiny little underweight white girls. So, well, I mean, I was about to say something's off with their logic and their way of thinking, but I think that goes without saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have Jonestown, Jim Jones, 918 at least murder suicide. A lot of people will try to tell you that it's mass suicide, but I don't think so. I think most of the people who drank the Flavor Aid, it's not Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid gets a bad rap. They Jim Jones couldn't afford Kool-Aid, so he had to buy the bargain brand Flavor Aid. Most of them, I don't think, really knew they were about to drink poison. A lot of them, when they got there to the bodies, a lot of them had been shot, or you could tell had been forced to drink at gunpoint. Not all of the 918 were murders, but I would just say a grand majority of them were. There were a fair amount of them that killed themselves. They're like, okay, well, the main group has done it. Now it's time for us.
It's fucked up.
It is really fucked up. It's amazing. I will tell you, it's probably one of the best series that they have done. Listening to last podcast talk about how he went from a door-to-door monkey salesman in Cleveland or Cincinnati, one of the two, to a massive cult leader in South America. And actually at one point was a really big worked with the ACLU and a lot like the NAACP, like really had a lot of like good ideas and a lot of really did a lot of really progressive stuff, but somehow progressed from trying to do good to murdering over 900 people.
That's crazy, man. I can't wait to listen to that.
Meth and speed apparently are a hell of a drug. and ego, believing your own bullshit.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, some of us lack that.
Oh, all right. So let's get into more fun stuff here. Let's cults and pop culture.
Yeah.
I did write down a whole list here, but let's do our favorite cult related pop culture item, so that I don't list all of your favorites and then be like, I talked about them first.
Okay.
So let's see. I think Justin, you started first last week. So Jeremy, how about you start?
All right. So
Excellent.
I did 3 plus 2 runner ups. Do you want me to just do all 3 right now?
I don't
remember how we did it.
Normally we go 1, 2, 1. We just go around the room.
Well, let's just go around the horn here.
Okay.
One at a time.
All right.
One at a time. All right.
First one was the cult from GTA 5, the Epsilon cult. And this is a group that you can actually bring random NPCs to and just drop them off and they become victims of the cult. And then later in the game, you get to do missions for this cult. And they have a whole like pamphlet and like belief system that you can read online, the in-game service. And it's good. It's a very good parody of actual cults.
Can you become a member of the cult, or is it
like, I guess technically you can when you're done with the mission, like you're an official member, like you get an item in your inventory. So you like there's nothing like really after that happens. It's kind of just a side thing, but yeah, that's my first cult from pop culture.
All right. The first one I wrote down was the Ginger Kids from South Park, when Eric Cartman gets tricked into thinking he has gingivitis. So he gets the group of all the ginger kids in the area together, and they start like attacking the parents and the children of the non-gingers until he realizes that they're just pranking him, and then he tries to figure out how to weasel his way out of the whole situation.
Nice.
I put for my first one Fight Club.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
You know, because I mean it's just a really good movie on top of it, but the cult, you can see the beginnings of the cult through the very end of it, how it goes from just a group of guys hanging out doing guy stuff to I don't know, murdering thousands.
Right. Yeah. All right. My next one is Eden's Gate from Far Cry 5, which is kind of based on the Heaven's Gate cult, I think. Or maybe it was actually not the Heaven's Gate, maybe it's the Branch Davidians. But
I-
you kind of he's like the main villain in the game Far Cry, and you kind of go up against his cult throughout the whole game and take out different outposts and shit. Like very much like you would in any other Ubisoft game. But yeah, all right. That was mine.
The other one that I wrote down was the Ministry of Darkness. If you guys remember that, probably not. That was an old storyline that the WWF used to use in the 90s, where it was The Undertaker. He had his little cult following when he'd come out with that symbol that he had with the T and the X, and he used to like put people on it and lift them to the rafters. And
Sounds awesome.
they all came out in their like druid outfits, and yeah, so he was the leader of that. That was inspired by the old Ravens flock from WCW days. It was the same kind of concept. That's when wrestling used to actually be good in the Attitude Era.
I did encounter that a couple of times in my research, but I didn't write any of that down. So you covered it for me. So
Yeah, I remembered that.
all right.
Nice.
My second one is the Sith,
Mm.
because I got to talk about Star Wars at some point, right?
Right.
It's in your contract.
All right. My last one is the cult from Dude, Where's My Car? Those bubble wrap guys.
Oh man, I forgot to write them down. They would have been perfect on my list.
Sultan. Yeah.
Did you like that movie?
Dude, where's my car?
Yeah.
I'm
That was one of those where I seen it once and I was like, that's good. I don't need to see this again.
I saw it a long time ago, and then I saw most of it again just recently. And I liked it more this time around because I knew how stupid it was.
Yeah.
Like, like not having any. I mean, granted,
Cat break.
going into it the first time, Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott in a movie called Dude, Where's My Car? You should know right up front, like you're not getting Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean it's silly. I mean it's one of those movies that like it's a fun movie as long as you know you're not watching a good movie at the beginning.
Mhm.
Right.
I think I was at like the perfect age when that movie came out because I loved it like back when I was a kid. But it's been a long time since I've seen it, so kind of afraid to revisit it.
I mean, it probably doesn't hold up as well as you'd want it to, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
I like I said, I just watched it probably a good majority of it in the last month or two.
Yeah. I'll check it out.
All right.
Okay. And then my other one I put on here was the League of Assassins. Because I mean, if you got to bring up Star Wars, I got to bring up DC.
Right.
I would put the League of Assassins up there too.
All right. Nice.
I had Ra's al Ghul on my honorable mention.
Yeah, not the original head of the League of Assassins, but yeah, he did
Yeah.
take over.
Have we done? Okay. I forgot where we were. I got thrown off by.
It'd be your third.
Okay, my third. Okay. Salem Saberhagen.
The
What?
cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yes, because he was a cult leader who was leading people to take over the U.S. and that's why the witch council turned him into a cat as punishment for his cult abilities. And much like my talking about Star Wars, it's Halloween season. I must talk about Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I wonder what they would call that show if they were going to reboot it years later.
We're not going down that path. Again. I still hold a grudge.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Well, did you have any honorable mentions there, Jeremy? or-
Oh, yeah, actually I did. Kimmy Schmidt, that cult from that show.
Hey, that was also on my honorable mention list.
Yeah,
It's a good
same
one.
here.
John Hamm was very funny in that role, as I forget the guy's name in the show, but and then the other one I put was what we kind of touched on was multi-level marketing schemes, because it just feels very cult-like.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, I also put that Hydra was on there. And then also I had the cult from Kimmy Schmidt.
Okay. These weren't necessarily honorable mentions on my list. They were just ones that came up as I was doing research. You had Children of the Corn, The Wicker Man, both versions. I have not seen it yet, but that movie Midsummer,
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand, it sounds very similar to Wicker Man, but I don't know.
I'm gonna make a
Um,
confession right here about that movie, because I know a lot of people like it, and I've even probably told some people I liked it, but I thought it was so boring. All right.
Midsummer.
Yeah.
Okay. His other big movie that everybody was so obsessed with, Hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
I
Awful.
hate it.
Hereditary
I
was
fucking-
terrible.
Hated that movie. I hated it so much that I kind of refused to watch Midsummer
Yeah.
because everybody's talking about it the way they talked about Hereditary, and I'm like, I fell for this once before.
I
Did
mean,
you- Oh, go on, Jeremy.
I was just gonna say, there's definitely some cool stuff in it. Like I liked some of the shots and some of the look of some of the stuff, but overall, I was just kind of like, I don't know.
Did you pay money to see Hereditary?
No, I watched it on Amazon Prime.
Okay, I saw it in theaters. I paid money
I-
to see that one.
I'm sorry.
It was awful.
Did you go see that one by yourself, or did you go with?
No, I went with the lady,
Uh,
and it was awful.
did she also have the same opinion, or?
She kind of liked part of the ending, but most of it was just boring.
I hated that movie so much. I was so angry with the people who recommended it to me that I almost stopped listening to their podcast, but then I kept going because they've been spot on about nearly everything else. So there was that one season of American Horror Story, literally just subtitled Cult.
Colts.
Mhm.
Red State,
Oh yeah,
which
That's
I'm
cool.
kind of surprised didn't make your list.
forgot all about that one.
There was that Kevin Bacon show, The Following.
Okay, never
Um,
heard of it.
he was an FBI agent who took down a serial killer, and then while the serial killer was in prison, managed to start a cult.
Okay,
And then the cult managed to break him out. The first season was really good. The second season was, and then the third season, I'm like, this is why the show got canceled.
Hmm.
The Hand from Marvel,
All right.
and then Beavis and Butthead had Cornholio,
Huh.
where they accidentally started the Cornholio cult.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
Wow.
one.
Okay.
Death Eaters from Harry Potter. That one I did debate on because but I mean, multiple people had them referenced as a cult, but I was like, are they, or are they just? But I guess maybe they're a political cult, like because
Sure.
they had an agenda. But now I'm going to need the two of you to talk about this one because this was South Park had Return of the Chef, the Super Adventure Club, listed as a
Okay.
cult, had it as listed as a cult, but I don't know. It seemed very.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't really remember that.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any more details on it?
Yeah, I guess it's where because I know the Matt Parker and Trey Stone had a real falling out with Isaac Hayes
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because of the whole Scientology thing.
Yeah.
Because they did the whole Tom Cruise being in the closet episode, and then I guess he got super pissed off about it, and they were like, "Oh, it's perfectly okay for us to make fun of Jews, Christians, Muslims, everybody else, but now that we're making fun of your group, you're gonna." And so, like a couple years or a year or so later, because they wrote Chef off, so they brought him back to like kill the character off, and I guess there was a cult called the Super Adventure Club.
Do you know anything with the episode or anything? Because I'll look it up.
I remember like how they brought him back. Didn't they do like a Darth Vader thing?
I think so. It was either called Return of the Chef or Super Adventure Club because I wrote down both of those titles. I do know it was in 06.
Okay.
I was in high school when that episode came out.
Good God. Am I that?
Those were like good old days. Hanging
Nice
out
to-
at Ryan's house, watching it on the CRT.
As I said, it makes you feel better. I graduated by then, Nicholas.
Oh, 06. Not only was 06, I had been out of college for 6 years. I'd already moved down to Florida, done a bunch of shit, moved to Wisconsin, and like started my life here by the time.
Oh my gosh. You really are old.
Oh, and then Octopussy, she was kind of a cult leader of the group, and the closest James Bond cult that kept popping up,
That's a good one.
and it had the name that we love to say.
Otherwise, I'd say one that kept popping up for me was Order of the Sword from Devil May Cry. I didn't really play
Okay.
a lot of it, so I don't know too much about it.
Hmm.
And then the other one I questioned, like I talked to Jeremy about, I don't know if the Foot Clan is considered a cult.
I think I saw them on a list somewhere, but I left them off because
They're more of a crime syndicate than a cult.
right, which is honestly kind of also why I almost didn't put Hydra or the Hand on there. But I know with Hydra, like they got real in depth with like the Hail Hydra, and then the Hand had the whole like Harlem, Devil of Harlem series. Like I don't know, like it was because there was I mean your categories. I mean it's hard to say.
She likes to chime in.
So anything else we want to talk about with cults before I read my little summary?
Well, I guess I don't really have anything else about cults.
Like I said, like we talked about, this was kind of a hard episode to do because it was, I think cult maybe was too broad.
Yeah, that was the struggles I came up to.
Are there cults are there brand cults out there?
Cult of personality.
Like the cult of Starbucks? 'Cause
Oh, I guarantee you.
Starbucks cups.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guarantee you there. I mean, like sneakerheads probably have like their own, like, I only buy Nike, or the guy who has to go to Starbucks every day. Apparently Justin is one of these people.
Oh, not me.
Oh, okay. Are these all Starbucks cups?
Every one of them.
Oh, and that's where you really get into your strength. Like, how broad do you want your definition of cult to be? Because you could classify certain sports fandoms as cults.
Hey now. I feel like you're targeting me.
No, because you are willing to say that the Packers are wrong certain times, but there are fan bases like, well, I mean,
like the cult of TB12.
That's true. Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
cult. It's a very strict diet, a strict schedule. The leader is very charismatic and handsome.
There's a multi-level marketing scheme involved with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make the argument that like some of the diehard Dodgers, but they tend to only attack people who are Giants fans.
Raiders
Um,
fans.
Raiders fans, at least until they moved to Las Vegas. I don't know if the black and gold army followed, or not black and gold, black and silver army followed.
I don't know.
We'd have to get David or Jamie on from the bullpen to tell us about, like, say, soccer in Europe, to tell us, because of their rabid fan base, like, do they, I don't know. Like I said, it depends on how broad of a definition you want to get. I mean,
Right.
One of the better rock songs that's ever been is Cult of Personality by Living Color,
Mhm.
and we have, I mean, you have, so that's where, like, it's really broad and at the far reaching of what a cult is, because, like, the Kardashian brand has
Yeah.
built a following, Nike has a following,
You could even say like the Gathering of the Juggalos. I know that's more of a gang than a cult.
Whoop whoop.
Gang.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on how broad
Okay.
you want to define the word.
What about the Kia Boys? Gang or cult? Or just
Don't know.
harmless pranksters?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's a bunch of people in Milwaukee who steal Kias.
Ah,
I wouldn't say harmless pranksters.
Well, that was just a label I was throwing out there as a potential.
I would say harmful pranksters, maybe,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because that would kind of ruin your day if you walked out and your Kia was stolen. Now,
Yeah.
granted, you owned a Kia to begin with. There we go.
That's on you.
There we go. There's another cult, the Ford versus Chevy guys, or the
Mhm.
Dodge guy, like
the muscleheads.
the guys who were like, I wouldn't be caught dead driving a Ford. I wouldn't be caught dead driving a Chevy.
Right.
I've driven both.
Yeah, no, I've owned both.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah, I mean, so if we do this again next year, or at least maybe not 31 for 31, maybe we'll just stick with the whole, it's October, we'll do themed episodes.
Yeah.
We'll try to be less broad than just cold.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do something like all of religion. No. Oh wait, no, that's worse. So because I think I did it last year, I know I did it last week. I tried to have kind of what did Jerry Springer call his last second thing?
Like final thoughts or something?
Final thing. I tried to write down a paragraph or two, just kind of summarizing my thoughts and my
I love
feelings.
it.
Yeah.
Cults have a
Don't expect us to do this.
No. I don't expect you guys to do anything but the top three. Cults have a long, strange, difficult history. They are hard to define, and it is often too late once they have gone bad. It would be too easy to blame people who have joined the cult for their actions, but many times they don't know what was happening until it was too late. They were broken, looking for something, and then that predator found them. Koresh, Jones, Manson, Applewhite, etc. were all those charismatic. They were good at reading people. Some of them even started with good intent, but soon their own bullshit took over. Oh man, I should write cleaner here.
It was going so well.
Yeah, you were doing so good.
That doesn't mean that all are absolved, but a fair amount of mental illness involved on both sides. But when they are real, they are scary, sad, and downright terrifying. But when they're fictional, they can be fun or creepy but enjoyable. So that's cults.
All
Boom.
right.
Credits.
Yeah.
Nice. That was good.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.